Chapter 707. Ah, you have come. Yes, priest, and what about the pharmacist Anon? He's at the headquarters. Longbottom and Ella were still unconscious, their eyes closed. Gakane scrutinized the restraint forms designed to prevent any self-harm with a furrowed brow. He had been investigating the whereabouts of the sage outside when they had been bitten their tongues, missing the horrific scene. Yet the sight before him was enough to imagine the dreadfulness of that moment, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Even in their unconscious state, the total absence of a certain vitality that should be inherent in any normal person was strikingly apparent, as if it had been completely drained away. It's evident that they were not in their right minds when they bit their tongues. Gakane, gazing down at them, opened his mouth to speak. It must have been the sage who brainwashed them into biting their tongues, right? Probably. It's terrifying how just one ability can determine life and death. But why did they immediately attempt to kill themselves upon capture, unlike other awakeners from the Star of Nagran? Perhaps back then there was no need, and now there is. If someone recognizes them as frequent visitors to the Crown Prince's palace, it could be disadvantageous. It's about eliminating both the evidence and the witnesses. Lusan, having learned about the sage during the treatment process, interjected Kana, agreeing with Lusan's words, yet thinking like a true awakener offered a different perspective. Your words, priest, are one reason, but I think differently. If killing them was more advantageous, the sage would have already killed the other awakeners from the Star of Nagran, but that hasn't happened yet. I suspect it might be a matter of whether or not the victims met certain conditions to trigger the sage's lethal ability. Conditions to trigger the ability? To Gakane's question, Kana hummed, pondering. Gakane, you know I have been investigating those associated with the Star of Nagran, right? Of course, who else in the cavalry knows more about them than you? Right, after much scrutiny, I'm beginning to understand how the sage's abilities are activated. The fact that followers of Nahan were also captured this time was greatly informative. With that, Kana made a request to Lusan and Gakane. Please keep what I'm about to say confidential. It's still speculative, but I would rather it not be discussed elsewhere. Of course, I swear to God, I will keep it secret. Same here. Should I even refrain from mentioning it to the commander or either? Gakane, seeking something to compare to a divine oath, was met with Kana's laughter. No, if the commander or either ask, you should tell them. I will be reporting to them soon anyway. Alright, everyone but the commander and either. Anyway, from what I have deduced through my readings of the conditions of the awakeners from the Star of Nagran, the sage's ability is definitely brainwashing. However, it's not like the sage can command anything at any time. Oh, so there are limits to using the ability, just like us? Yes, if the sage could easily use brainwashing to the extent of causing death, people like Nahan wouldn't have emerged, right? No matter how much trust there is, it's rare for someone to die immediately upon being commanded to do so. An ability that overcomes the instinct to live requires immense power, and I believe it also necessitates certain preconditions. Though not as terrifying as the abilities of the sage or Nahan, the cavalry had several mental ability users. Kana, as the leader, had a significantly higher understanding of mental abilities compared to other members. Mental abilities vary in effectiveness depending on the subject. You have faced Nahan yourself, Gakane, so you know that strong-willed individuals are less susceptible. However, under certain conditions, the power can exceed its usual limits. You understand this far? Yes, so what are these preconditions? Loyalty? That's part of it, but what comes next is more important. Kana lowered her voice. I have been asking the awakeners from the Star of Nagran about their first encounter with the sage. Surprisingly, I found a commonality in their experiences. My guess is that the sage used his ability at the first meeting. Used his ability at the first meeting? Openly brainwashing? There was an unspoken rule that new awakeners to the Star of Nagran must meet the sage personally for their membership to be approved. After that, they received group norm training from the sage, and only then they were assigned tasks according to their aptitudes. This detail was consistently mentioned by all who were part of the Star of Nagran. However, Kana read something more covert that the storytellers themselves had not realized. This insight was a result of her abilities taking a significant leap forward after recently thwarting invaders in the Sun Palace. Initially, her power only allowed random access to information from touched objects. Now, she could selectively extract specific types of information and reconstruct memories or thoughts based on the past information of the subject. If pushed further, she could even glean a little information about a third party who had interacted with her target. Essentially, the target acted as a kind of intermediary. However, this method was ineffective unless a third party had left a deep impression or a significant experience on the target. In this case, all awakeners of the Star of Nagran had such profound impressions and unique experiences with the sage, enabling her to gather considerable information even indirectly. For a secret organization formed for survival, such a rule makes sense. But think about it, the sage personally meeting and training every new awakener without anyone else's assistance. Considering his abilities, doesn't that seem like an ideal scenario? Indeed, there is no better way to exert brainwashing than through teaching. It's natural to believe and follow the words of a teacher. Gakane's eyes grew serious. Kana flashed a sharp smile. Exactly, trust. According to the information I gathered, the sage would always start the training by revealing that he too was a powerful user who had left his homeland and lived a hard life. He always used the same phrase with the new awakeners. It was the most famous quote about faith from the sun god scriptures. Light does not change direction and darkness comes to fall. Amidst all fears, believe in those who forge ahead. The Testament of Faith from Scripture, chapter 3, verse 98. Lusan, reacting to the mention of the scripture, promptly responded. Kana declared in the correct answer. Yes. The last words left by the messenger are hey before he returned to the sun. It's a part particularly favored by priests leading groups because of its emphasis on believing in those who forge ahead. I didn't know that. But I do think that phrase started making people believe in the sage. Before joining the Star of Nagran, the awakeners, filled with distrust and guardedness from all their experiences, began to open up and believe in the sage after hearing those words. After the training, there wasn't a single person who resisted the idea that the sage was benevolent and trustworthy. Kana continued, her face turning bitter. You see, brainwashing doesn't work if it's too complicated. What could be a simpler and more beneficial phrase for the sage than trust me? That way, he could have brainwashed everyone in the Star of Nagran. Yes, afterwards, those who seemed most affected by the brainwashing were filtered out during the training process and made into close aides, continuously strengthening the brainwashing. According to what Kana had read, apart from the phrase trust me, the sage hadn't directly said anything universally common to the awakeners. Thinking about it, the sage probably had only one chance to brainwash each person. Strengthening an existing brainwash seems possible, but completely changing it seems not. For example, if someone was brainwashed to like roses, you could deepen it to make them swallow rose thorns, but suddenly making them like lilies instead seems impossible. Do you get what I mean? I think so. It's like continuously strengthening the belief to the point of biting their own tongues, but not changing to believe in a different person. Maybe that's why the brainwashing didn't work properly on Nahan. Gakane's mind drifted to a previous argument he had heard between the sage and Nahan. Maybe Nahan joined before the formation of the Star of Nagran and missed the training process, or perhaps he was brainwashed differently in the early days. That could explain why the sage couldn't control him despite the chaos and didn't use his powers. Exactly, Gakane, you're thinking just like me. Thanks for understanding. After saying this, Kana looked down at Longbottom and Ella with a touch of regret. These people must have been brainwashed by the sage repeatedly without their knowledge. Their faith, compounded over time, must have made them feel the sage's affairs as their own, or maybe even more important. That's why they were used as shields by the sage. Dot dot dot. I don't know how true my speculation is yet, but it's something I can never forgive. Kana clenched her fist. Oh, now I have to go back and reread how many times Sage said, trust me. I'm pretty sure he says that pretty often.